back to the WPPM studios in Philadelphia. This is the World Sports Show.
And welcome back to World Sports Show here on WPPM LP Philadelphia, 106.5 on your FM dial. If you're listening on the web, we are phillycam.org/radio/listen. On the line, we have Kelly Lindsey, head coach of Afghanistan women's football team. How you doing tonight, Coach?
I'm doing great. How are you guys?
Good, good. I hearing some reports it's going to get a little snow up in your area, but, you know, we'll keep you warm for this next half an hour and just talk football.
Sounds great, yeah. Looking forward to a little snow tonight. Maybe a big storm. Keep us all home tomorrow.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing like busting out the old orange ball, right?
Yeah. Oh, the good old days.
Yeah, exactly. It's funny how many kids don't get that reference when I make the reference. Hey, let's bust out the orange ball. It's going to snow. And they're like, what? You can play in snow? I'm like, yeah. Have you been around? It can be played in snow.
When you take the old spray paint the ball, shovel, you pick off the ice on the field. I mean, that's the way it should be played.
Now, you did grow up in Nebraska, am I correct?
You are right.
So I'm sure you got a little bit of cold weather out there to play in.
Yeah, I used to call it, actually, I still call it the O-Town Philly, so it's got a little Philly connection.
Interesting. So so we talk a lot about, you know, just the challenges of coaches. There's always logistical challenges and there's always equipment challenges. But coaching Afghanistan women's national team, I mean, you've got some of the biggest challenges of any head coach. You know, we've talked about your equipment needs and facilities. You know, what are just some of the big challenges every day that you face?
Safety. Our girls going to make it through the day, and being able to communicate with them, making sure that we can stay in touch and we can teach them along the way. There's not always Wi-Fi connection. There's not always power. There's not always internet, so it's tough to stay connected, and sometimes you don't hear from them for a few days, and you wonder what happened. Tons of equipment challenges, travel challenges, financial, pulling together a team from around the world who all speak on the field. We could speak 6 or 8 different languages at a time. So you name it, we got it. Teaching girls how to play 11-a-side football at the international level for the first time.
Yeah, I mean, it just shows you about the patience, you know, like we've talked about. You've coached at the highest professional levels, college levels. You played at Notre Dame. You play for the women's national team where sometimes you have to scale it back, and I'm sure you build goals within goals for every camp.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the last camp we were in, we were playing a scrimmage, and we had talked about being physical on corner kicks, and we were showing it in the room. We always try to show practice before we go out, show the game scheme before we go out, so we always have a team room, and we're trying to show this. And we had talked about being physical on corners, and we had the first corner that we were defending, and one of our girls turns around and, like, bear hugs the opponent. And I turned back to the team on the bench, and I was like, well, she got the idea of physical. Now we got to teach her how to do it in a real football environment.
Yeah, how not to get caught by the ref, you know?
Yeah. It was something you just take for granted, that word physical, and then you realize you've got to break it down even further and further.
Yeah, so let's share with the listeners out there how you got involved with being the head coach of the Afghanistan women's football team.
You know, it's a bit of a random story. Mostly I was trying to just help them. I was trying to provide a place and space for them to come play and feel safe, and have a female leader or role model or coach or, you know, a support staff who was a woman who understood the game from their point of view. So I had worked with a few girls from Afghanistan through the Julie Fadi Sports Leadership Academy, and I had heard their story, understood the challenges they had with male coaches, the challenges they had training in their own country, the challenges they had to travel and actually play a legitimate game or have a legitimate training camp. It was just something they never did. Their team and their program, you know, played a few games over the years and maybe a tournament here or there, but nobody was taking them serious and nobody was really training them and preparing them for the world stage. So I had moved to Hong Kong and thought, this is a place I can bring them and they can be safe. I couldn't really get them into the U.S. For visa reasons, and as we all know, many reasons. But when I moved to Hong Kong, I reached out to the Federation and just said, I'd love to help. We'll fundraise for you. We'll host you. We'll set it all up. And if you guys want any additional help or support, we've got coaches here who can help coach, who can help lead. We can do sports leadership. Because they had done a few leadership trips, like to Japan, with Unitar Hiroshima. So I knew that leadership was something the team was into. And I worked with them for about a year trying to make the camp happen, and one reason or another, and I think this is what I've learned about working with the team and the Federation and this world of women's football, is you really have to drive to the end. You really have to make every detail happen, or it's easy for them to say, oh, we couldn't do it. So about a year later, I get a random call from Khalida Popal, who was the original captain of the women's national team, the woman who kind of started it all and started the great fight for women in Afghanistan. And her and I started talking and connecting about camp. And about a month or so went by, and she called me back. She's like, you know what we really need? We really need a coach. A camp is great, but we really need a coach. We need someone who wants to take this project on, someone who can help lead us and drive us and take us into the international game. And she gave me the rundown on how it would work and just said, would you be willing? And then she said, why don't you think about it for a few days and let me know? And once you meet Khalida, you can't say no to her. I mean, when you hear her story and what she went through to build this team and being exiled from her country and everything that she's gone through, I mean, it's really hard to say no. And we connected, and then we just connected with Haley Carter, the assistant coach, and we started to build a staff, and we started to build camps, and we started to fundraise, and one thing came to another, and now we've created a program where girls around the world are wanting to be on the team and reaching out to us, and we're now kind of in a recruiting phase of even finding more players. So it's had a wild transformation in 2.5, 3 years, and it's been a beautiful journey, and I've learned a lot, and I think the girls have too. So, well, hopefully we can keep driving it forward.
Yeah, just love all the stories out there. There's a lot of different media covering it, and love reading the stories of every player has a story. You know, I mean, we look in the coaching of the average American kid, not many different stories. You know, they're just from different towns, but you know, you have all the same exact challenges in the U.S. There's nothing unique. The toughest thing is maybe a kid can't get a ride, needs the babysitter driving to practice. But the getting these group of women together, and you're getting from all corners of the globe, because you know they're living in all different places of the world, and just finding a safe spot. You have all these challenges, and John and I talk about the FIFA rankings. You know that some people say they're meaningless or not meaningless, but they must mean a lot to you guys, because you guys have really made some moves within the FIFA rankings. You've almost got to, look at, hey, these are some things that we can do to improve to get attention.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, for us, a team that hasn't been together for very long, if you just look at, legitimately together for very long, to be able to get out and play real FIFA competition and move up in the rankings and start to build legitimacy behind the program, I think it only helps for all the women's teams that are sitting in that region of the world who need help and support. Because we've had, Pakistan reach out, Bahrain reach out, and say, how are you doing this? How are you guys making this happen? And for those countries who have been doing it longer than us, who have had more success than us, who are ranked higher than us, to reach out to us to ask us how we're doing it shows we're making a step in the right direction, and we're starting to show some legitimacy in women's soccer around that region. And it also comes to show that it doesn't start always with winning. I think our girls have done a good job with their mentality. They all have these amazing stories. I mean, we had a young girl just reach out to us from Sweden who really wants to play, and when I reached back to her and I said, I understand it's your passion, it's your dream, what can we do to help? And her first comment was, well, my dad doesn't support it. My dad doesn't want me to play on the team, and I don't know if I could ever change his mind. And, I mean, this is a young woman living in Sweden, so when people hear our girls live everywhere, we often get that, well, are they really Afghani? Are we really helping the Afghan women? It's like, you absolutely are. They live in the culture of Afghanistan and their communities, and they still kind of have that cultural mentality around them that inhibits them at times. So even though this young girl's living in Sweden, her dream is to play on this team. Her dream is to represent her motherland. And, that's part of our job, too, is to mentor her, to hopefully have some conversations with her father. And if she can come into camp one day, I feel like we've made that step into the culture to help these young women follow their dreams.
Yeah, I'm thinking of a lot of times in games where, like pregame, halftime, you want to give your speech to motivate the players, but just all the stories I realize and I read, it's how do you stay composed as a coach to realize that, hey, you might be in a tough spot, down 2 goals at halftime, and given the halftime speed, these players are probably motivation within themselves, just seeing what they've been through. I mean, I'm sure that really makes you how you approach your pregame speech.
Well, I think you can look at it 2 ways. They're definitely motivated to go achieve something that they've never achieved and people have told them they never will achieve. But on the other hand, there's also sometimes they can be very quick to be so down on themselves and almost go into that mindset of everyone's always told me we'll never do it, and now look at us. We might not ever do it. And that mentality changes very quickly. You could have them on the highest of highs, and then suddenly they're on the lowest of lows. And I think that's something we're trying to teach them about being professional, and that you are now on a professional environment, and we have to maintain that emotional stability throughout a game. But honestly, I try to break the game down in every half into almost quarters, 4 parts of the half. How did we do in the opening 10 or 15 minutes? How do we do in the next phase, the next phase, the next phase? Because we struggle to be international game fit, and all of our girls will tell you that. All the coaching staff will tell you that. So we can't approach it as a 90-minute game. We are not ready to win the 90-minute game, but we can win sections and parts, and we can come off the field at halftime or at the end of the game and realize where we were really successful. And, fitness and some other things can get in the way of no matter how good you are. You can't be successful for 90 minutes if you're not international game fit. And at the end of this last camp in Jordan, when we started to talk to the girls about, all right, we really got to take our fitness serious. We really got to do it when you're home. I asked the girls out of Kabul, where will you do your fitness when you're not with the team? Because as a team, they might train 2 times a week. But to be internationally fit, you got to do it every day. And the fact that their response was in our bedroom. In our bedroom. They don't have that freedom to go out on the streets and train or go to the park and play or get fit any other way. They can't go to a gym. They can't go to a park. The only way they're going to get fit is to spend time in their bedroom training. It really opened my mind to what we're working with.
Just remind everybody listening to World Sports Show, we have Kelly Lindsey on, head coach, Afghanistan women's football team. And, you were texting before the show about the different needs, like you guys needing shin guards and you guys needing cleats, and you said a ball for their room, and it just really got me thinking that, our parents would kill us if we're practicing our juggling or dribbling in the wall or banging the ball off the wall, that you almost have to, with fitness you need, game-type fitness, the touches, and you're just so limited on what you can do in a room, even with just a ball. You almost have to have a soft type ball that can kick, because how do you replicate those situations for game fitness? Your touch, when, like you said, they've got to keep it 100% private. I mean, we've seen the players flee Afghanistan and have to play for other countries, or just, have to overcome, families' wishes and desires. But I mean, it's what you guys are doing. I'm sure, the government's starting to take notice that the pressures are now getting put on, the male side of the country.
Yeah, I mean, it's always, on one level, it's positive when you start to get people talking about it, but there is another side to it which makes you a little bit nervous about getting too many people talking about it too early. Or, I mean, our girls in Afghanistan, I worry about their safety. I worry about when we talk about it and we get all pumped and excited about it, that they have to deal with the repercussions in the country. I think it does put pressure on the Federation, and it puts pressure on the men's side. We've had a lot of support from the men's side, though. So, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. I'm shocked at the amount of support we've gotten out of Afghanistan over the past few months, and I hope that continues. And it's come from a lot of male athletes, a lot of the media in the male sports world. So there's, a lot of positives and a lot of credit to be given, but there is still an underlying concern and worry all the time that we can't be there to protect the girls in Afghanistan, and that does scare me. You just never know what's going to happen.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of the promotion posters, like from Hummel that have, the men and women together. I mean, how do the men viewed over there? Because in a lot of these countries, if you're on the national team, you're an idol, you're a hero in the country, you almost walk on water. How are the men's players over there viewed?
Oh, definitely. I mean, that mentality, that's actually one of the driving factors of this women's team is if you ask them why football matters so much, obviously it's about changing the name of Afghanistan. So when people say Afghanistan, the first thing you'd think about is not terror and all the negativity. But there's also this story they tell about the 2013 SAF Championships, which is the South Asia Football Federation Championships. And our men's team has always been competitive in it. And in 2013, they won for the very first time. And the girls will tell you that it is the one and only time in their history that they've ever seen the country come together in peace on the streets, where everybody came out onto the streets. Everyone was peaceful. Everyone was cheering and supportive of football, of Afghanistan, being united, trusting each other for those moments. Like, those are words we take for granted, but for them, they've only lived in war, and they've only lived in destruction. Just to see that one moment, football really does matter to them. They want to be that beacon of hope. They want to have a championship that the whole country stops and celebrates together. Whether they celebrate them or not, just that idea that football can unite a whole nation.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen a lot of news. We touched on the phone earlier this week, and we talked about on the show last week about next year. Saudi Arabia said in the year 2019 they're going to start allowing women to come to the football matches too. And I think that's another big thing is maybe one day down the road when these fathers will come and see their daughters play, and it's an eye opener. It's a different culture there, but we still had those kind of. My father talks about those prejudices all the time when women know it's unladylike. You don't play sports. And I'm sure you probably heard that because we're not going to say your age on the show, even though it is on the internet out there. People can't find it. But I'm sure that might have been happened to you as a younger kid trying to play soccer. Or I'm sure you had to play with boys at times.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, growing up in my neighborhood even, I was the only girl that was playing sports and, being active with the boys. I had two brothers, so that obviously played into it. But I definitely grew up in a time, I kind of straddled the line. I was close enough to see the struggles. When I was young, there was no women's national team. I remember sitting on the edge of my bed one day staring at this poster, and my dad came in. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I want to play on that team one day." And I was talking about the U.S. men's national team. And he was like, "Well, then you better get working." And I often think about that moment because that's my dad telling me at 5 years old that I can be on that men's team. He never told me, "Oh, that's a silly dream," or "You could never get there. There's no women's team." He just said, "Then get working." And that's always been ingrained in me, and I think that's always been ingrained in us as Americans on one level is, yeah, we understand the struggle and strife, but we also know we can get past it, and we do have some freedoms and some liberties to get past it. And if I think, about these girls in Afghanistan, the ones we've interacted with for 2 or 3 years, I think they have that mentality now. They can see the hope and the light and the beacon, and they're working a lot harder than they were 2 years ago because they see that it can be a reality for the first time.
And I'm sure your youth inside you when they put on the Afghanistan jersey and these young ladies step on the field, just that pride of representing their nation. You got to do it for our country. John and I are still waiting for our phone call. The phone still hasn't rung on our end. So, but just that putting that jersey on, describe those feelings, from everything you go to just put on that USA jersey and step on that pitch being a national team player.
There is no feeling like it. I mean, the first time you walk into your national team locker room and you see your jersey hanging in your locker and, the way they hang it and your name on the back and the number there, and you just suddenly are like overwhelmed that first time, like, wow, I'm finally doing it, because it's a dream you've had since you were a little kid. And the first time you hear the national anthem with the women's national team jersey on is a moment you'll probably never forget. I mean, the chills you get, the emotion you get, the tears that well up. You wear the kit as a youth national team, you feel a certain way, but that moment you become a women's national team player and put it on and stand out there for the national anthem. I mean, I'm getting chills right now thinking about it and talking about it. But I know that's how these girls feel. They don't often get to hear their national anthem played in, a stadium under the lights. And I know how much it means to them to be in the locker room putting that on as a team. I mean, the way they check themselves, the way they dress each other, the way they, make sure that everything's perfect on each other and as a team, because they really want to represent it with so much pride, and they want to make sure the world knows that there's some beautiful things about Afghanistan.
I want to thank you for being on, Coach, and I know that there's a GoFundMe page out there, so everybody out there, if you can do yourself a favor and help this program out, that it's a great cause, and anything we can do here on World Sports Show and through our foundation, let us know, because I think that the internet has really helped programs like this, help get off the ground, and, all it takes is a couple people to hear your story and help support you guys.
Oh, absolutely. We appreciate it. I mean, our big next step is to get the team to Japan, and we've worked with the Japan FA to get there, so we've got to book our flights, and we got to pay for the flights, but hopefully we can get some funding going and make sure that we get this team to Japan for their next trip.
All right, Coach, thank you for coming on the show. Appreciate everything you're doing.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate everything you're doing. Have a great night.
All right, bye-bye now. That was head coach of Afghanistan's women's national team, Kelly Lindsey. You're listening to World Sports Show. I'm Charlie. He's John. I mean, it just blows my mind. I rarely get speechless on this show. I mean, that you and I sometimes, just when we're coaching, we're just coaching X's and O's. I mean, she's doing beyond coaching X's and O's. It's kind of like being a general manager and just helping set up all the logistics and things that other head coaches for other national teams don't even come close to doing.
No, not even close. Just having to check on players and see
if they're alive and safe.
Yes.
It just it gets you. It's a few times in show where I try not to get choked up and emotional, but it does get to you, And I was joking with Kelly last week, and she's not getting these 7-figure salaries where you're here like the head coaches like Klinsman making over $1 million a year, and it's like she's doing this for the love of the game and the care for these players. I mean, there's nothing better than just helping this team just get together.
Just get together.
Yeah, just get together. It's not even worried about who your 11 are or who your 18 are. Let's just get enough for a camp.
That's it. But very good interview, and very thankful for having come on our show and talk about it. That was awesome.
Yeah, so big thank you out there to Haley Carter for helping set that up, and big thank you to Kelly Lindsey, head coach of the Afghanistan women's football team, and all the supporters out there. If you get a chance, go on Google, jump on, and search GoFundMe, make a donation, then please help them out. We'll be reaching out back to them, seeing other ways that we can help them through their show, or send us an email at mailbag@worldsportshow.com if you think you know a way that you can possibly help this team out.
That's right. Don't forget, we got Twitter, Facebook. You're the social media guy, so give them the...
Yeah, at World Sports Show on Twitter, World Sports Show on Facebook. Check us out there. We'll be having plenty of information posted on all of our different social medias out there to help support this team and this great cause.
That's right.
So we're going to be signing off the show. We'll be back next week. Brand new show, breaking down all the different action. Philadelphia Union are in action this weekend against Columbus Crew, so we'll be breaking down that game with interviews and fan interviews. So if you're down there at the stadium, look out for John and I. We'll be coming out there and interviewing you guys.
That's right. Stick around at the top of the hour. DJ Yard Sale coming in.
Great new show, man.
A little bit. Yep.
Yeah, check it out.
Thank you for watching a World Sports Show production. For more info, go to worldsportsshow.com.